Hey friends, it's Tracy. Welcome to today's video. I am sharing some Christmas crafts with you that are totally my style, and I'm so honored and fortunate that so many friends like this style of crafting as well. Today's also a special day because I'm collaborating with my sweet friend Linda from Faythchick777 DIY by Design. I'll tell you about that a little bit more later, but without further ado, let me go ahead and share these country Christmas craft ideas. For this project, I am sharing how I hand lettered and hand painted a Christmas block. What I started with is this Be Grateful block. Now I'm going to be painting over that. I really like the red and the white, design that was around the edges. If that's something that you like too, and you don't have this one, use one that you have. You can put scrapbook paper on it or use a different design. Okay, so here what I'm doing is I'm just taking my white acrylic paint and I'm just painting this block. I did not have any white chalk paint that would have covered better because it took me 5 coats to cover this up, and it may have just been the paint, but whatever. It was okay because I was working on other things as well. So this is 5 coats just to cover all of that up. And so then now I'm going to create a design for a background, and I'm using this paint called Granite Gray. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm using my fan brush. And this is one of my favorite brushes to use, especially for backgrounds. And so I just try to get a bit of the bristles. I'm not using the whole fan brush. I'm using just a part of it, maybe half of it. And I'm just making some stripes just to make like a plaid pattern, or just to give it some lines, just to break it up a bit. Now I'm going to add some shading, and I'm using this brown color in milk chocolate. And this is my favorite way to give some shading. What I do is I'm using a 1/2 inch flat paintbrush. I dip half of my brush in paint, the other half in clean water. I blend on a paper towel. Then I go around the edges of my project. And until I sometimes like less is more. If I don't get the, heaviness of what I want, I'll go back over it. And then I also go in between the lines on one side, and that just kind of brings it out a bit. And I just like that look just for my painted projects. These are my favorite paintbrushes to use. I do have them linked in my Amazon store. And also I will have a link for you because I made this chart and it kind of, defines which brush I use for what. And so when I do hand lettering, what I decide is, I try to see how much space I have, and then I kind of go from there. Now I have been hand lettering for many years, and like I said, it is some God-given talent, and I am so grateful and honored that so many people do like this style of lettering. I encourage you to, keep trying. Now, for time purposes, I am going to, speed up this video because I have lots. I do try to jam pack my videos. There's so many steps in my projects. It's just how I'm wired. Anyway, and so I will have a separate video of how I hand letter, how I made this sign, slowing it down in real time. So be looking for that once I get that uploaded. But just really quick, I just hand lettered, and then I put happy dots on my letters. I'm going to use some milk chocolate brown paint to shade around the letters. And then I'm going to use my fine liner brush, that number 2 liner brush, and I'm going to put a white swoosh or a comma in each of the happy dots just to emphasize it, bring it out a little bit. I'm going to use my fine Sharpie marker to go around the letters just to give it a border. I just really feel that the beauty is in the details, and I love to doodle. I just love my black Sharpie marker, and I just love to highlight and, just emphasize all of my work and all of my painted projects. I also like to paint splatter my projects using black first, and then I go back over it with white. I will leave a link also to a separate video that I have if you're interested in learning how to paint splatter or how I paint splatter. For the tree, I'm using one of these small trees that came out of this pack from the Dollar Tree, and it's what I had on hand, and that's what I'm using. So the paint color that I'm using is holly green, and so I'm just using my flat paintbrush here, just trying to be slow here, kind of where the star is. And these are like laser cut, so I just paint the top of them because they turn out great. And I gave this 2 coats of the holly green paint. And then for the bottom of like where the trunk is, I am taking a tip from my sweet friends, Crafting Cousins. I see them use these furniture pins that you can get from the Dollar Tree, and they use them a lot on their projects. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I have to pick some of those up. And so it works great. There's like a pack of them. It's like 3 different colors, and it just worked great. Okay, so then now what I'm doing is I'm going to add some dimension. And so I have this white ink pad that I've had. It's very loved. It's very old. I don't even know if you can get white anymore, but it's something that I had in my stash, and I just went around the edges just to give it some definition. And so then now I have a large paintbrush, and it has a flat end on it. So I love to make my polka dots like this. So how I make my polka dots, I start in the middle, and then I like make a triangle. And so I go up, and then, you know, I go in the middle of those, and then I'll just continue to go around the tree until I get the look that I want. And sometimes I get a little sloppy and it kind of splatters a bit, but that's okay. I just take my stylus and dip in that white paint and just make some more dots where it looks like that mess up was meant to be there. I just use my fine Sharpie marker just to go around and give it some, outline. I also put a comma in the white dots of the tree just to bring it out a bit more. Now, you may have noticed that I didn't paint the star yet. Well, because I was going to use that rusty star, but it was a little big. So I needed to cover up that hole that was at the top because these are small ornaments. So I just used my spackle to do that. And then I have the stickles in the color yellow. So then I'm just going to, just put that on there and have a glittery star for my tree. And then once that is all dry, what I'm going to do is go ahead, and I'm using one tumbling tower block I get from the Dollar Tree, and I just want my tree to stick up just a tad, and so I'm going to use that for dimension. And then I've kind of already figured out where the placement's going to be so that, I can hide that, as well as I need to make sure that the trunk of my tree does not stick over because this block is going to sit up. Now for the fun part, I'm going to decorate the top of my block. And so I want to use just a small piece of styrofoam because I have some greenery and some pit berries and stuff that I want to stick in the styrofoam, because I have just found that if I stick it in the styrofoam, it holds a bit better and I can glue it in there. Anyway, so I had, usually I paint my styrofoam before I put it on, but I completely forgot. And so I go and I paint my styrofoam red, and then I'm going to use some fine Excelsior, which is kind of like Spanish moss, and it is, to me, it's kind of whimsy and I love it for my projects. Anyway, I just kind of covered that up, and then I have some greenery and some pit berries that I am just going to stick in the styrofoam. Then I'm going to make a small burlap bow. So I made sure and leave a space right there for my burlap bow. Now this burlap ribbon is an after Christmas find from a previous year. I just found it in my stash, and so I just made 2 loops, and then I'm just cutting off a piece just to cover the middle. And I'm making sure and using my masking tool so that it doesn't burn my fingers. And then I just, position it the way that I want. I cut off, I cut it at an angle just so that everything looks nice and, festive. And I just love the way that this block turned out. Oh my goodness. Guys, I just can't tell you how much I love this country Christmas block, because just all of these crafts are just totally how I decorate my home and what I like to do. For this project, I'm going to share how I created this cute little rustic house Christmas decor. Now, what I started with is one of these house frames from the Dollar Tree. I removed all of the, I took out the backing. I removed all of the inside parts and that kind of thing. I'm not going to need that. The insert where like the picture was, that's what I used to trace out my paper. And the paper that I'm going to use is this Crackle. It looks like Crackle, and it's an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. It says the Paper Studio, so that's a Hobby Lobby brand. And so I just traced out that so that I could, put it back into my frame. And to attach the paper to my cardboard or my back, the backing of my frame, I just used some Elmer's glue stick. For the words of my frame, I'm using one of these ornaments from from Hobby Lobby. It comes in a pack of 6. They're ornaments. This one says, "A very merry, holly jolly Christmas." I just love that so much. Anyway, I'm using the paint color True Red, and I just gave it 2 coats. I don't even remember if it needed 2 coats, but I just go over the that until I got the coverage that I want. I tried, this is laser cut, so it has like a, brown around the sign. So I didn't want to, give it too much paint because I didn't want it to go on the sides. Then to decorate the frame, I'm using some rickrack. Guys, y'all know that I love me some rickrack. And so I just cut off, I just measured it and I'm just hot gluing it onto, the back of this frame. And so there in the middle, that's where I'm going to glue down my words. Now for the actual house frame, these are wood and one could paint them or distress them, but I just chose to leave it natural the way that it is because I just really like the way that it all blended together. I just really thought that this was a very simple, Christmas. You can give this as a gift or you can make one for yourself and just have just a little holiday cheer. I decided to make a rustic bow, so I have some of this homespun fabric that I just tore strips out of, and it's homespun because you can see it on both sides. Usually fabric has a white backing, but homespun, you can see it on the both sides. And so I also have some strips of muslin fabric and made strips of that as well. Just use my pinking shears just to kind of help with cutting off any of the excess that I need to. So then now I'm just tying a knot in it. And like I said, it's a little bit bigger. So I will tie or I will use my pinking shears to cut off any of the excess. And then once I get the look that I like, then I'm just going to glue it there in the top of the house. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, today's a special day because I'm collaborating with my sweet friend Linda of Faythchick777 DIY by Design channel. Now, Linda is totally my style. She has so many fun, budget-friendly DIYs, high-end home decor, farmhouse, rustic, primitive. Let me tell you, she does a lot of trash to treasure. She is an awesome sewer. I'm so jealous of her sewing because she can just whip out those rustic country crafts. And I will have the link to Linda's video in the description box below. And if you're coming from Linda's channel over, I am so glad that you are here. I hope that you would consider subscribing and joining my little community. For this project, I'm sharing how I make my rustic Christmas trees. This turned out so nice, and I am just can't wait to decorate my home with it this year. Okay, so what I'm using is one of these wood tree forms from the Dollar Tree, and I am going to give it 2 coats of the pine green acrylic paint. And like I said, I gave it 2 coats, but it's really okay if it doesn't like completely cover it because it's rustic. And so I just kind of, just went with it. For the bottom, for the stem, I'm using this milk chocolate paint. So I gave the the trunk of the tree 2 coats of that. And then to add a more rustic, I just took my sanding block that I get these at the Dollar Tree and just sanded the whole tree. And then also I wanted to mention I'm making this where it's 2-sided. I am doing the same thing on both sides. So I painted both sides the same way with the pine green color paint and the brown for the trunk of the tree. I'm going to do some highlighting, and I'm using this color as buttermilk, and I'm going to do some edging around the, or just some doodling around the edge of the tree. I'm not being very precise because I don't want it to be very thick like I usually do. So I'm just kind of highlighting, hitting and missing different parts of it because I think that just kind of adds to the character and the beauty of the tree. So I'll just go around that both sides. I do let one side dry before I flip it over to the other side. And so then once that's dried, then I will give it I'm going to use that same buttermilk paint just to do some splattering. I wanted this tree to stand up like on its own, and to help with that, I just painted 4 tumbling tower blocks. I just painted them the same color of milk chocolate brown paint. I glued those 2 together, and then I am going to glue the first set to the front of the tree. Then I'm going to glue the second set to the back of the tree so that it's freestanding. To decorate my tree, I have this Pitberry and Jingle Bell garland that I got from Joann's. I had it in my stash. I think I got this in 2019, and so I'm not quite sure what they have this year, but I just love it so much, and it's just, little garland and wire. And so I'm just going to kind of wrap it around my tree just to give it, that primitive or rustic country look for my tree. And then I'm not gluing it or anything. I just kind of bend it the wire at the bottom, and then I'll stick it through the hole at the top. Now, to take my tree to another level, I have my homespun fabric, and I rip off just half inch or, even thinner of the homespun fabric. I just tie, it's not even a bow. I just tie like a knot in it, and then I glue different bows around both sides of the tree. to kind of mask and decorate the bottom, I'm using some fine Excelsior that I get also at Joann's, just hot gluing that there at the bottom, just to, like I said, kind of cover the blocks and just to give it a bit of whimsy. I decided on some raffia for a bow. I thought about putting a rusty star on there, but since it had the hole in it, I was like, yeah, it's perfect to tie a raffia bow in there. And so the raffia that I use, I get at Walmart in the crafts section. I love that raffia. It's just very pliable, you know, like very thin, and it's a very easy to work with that I have found. Anyway, so I just tie a bow there, and then I'll just cut off, you know, the long tail so that it looks nice. And so I just love the way that this rustic Christmas tree turned out. I know I will be making more because this is totally, guys, this is country Christmas to me, and this is how I decorate my home. I just love it so much, and I hope you do too. Linda, thanks so much for asking me to collaborate with you today. This has been a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see what you created because I know, girl, you are going to rock it. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate all of your kind, sweet comments and your support of my channel. All right, we'll talk to y'all very soon. God bless.